2, testing.
I can hear you, Brenton. Can you hear me?
Testing 1, 2.
Testing 3, 4. Testing 1, 2. Attention, if you are logged in online, please mute yourself. Call-in user 2, please mute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm calling this meeting of the Plan Commission to order. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with Section 19.83 and 19.84 Wisconsin statutes, in such form that we will apprise the general public and media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows that everyone is present, and we've got Bill online, and Russ Ewert is absent excused. Entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
And
I will
second,
second that motion.
either.
Thank you, Bill. Discussion? No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carried. Oh. Wonder if I need to recuse myself too then. I should know this. So, 402, so we're fine. I'm going to, before we get into new business, I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules for the purpose of moving citizen input public appearance above new business.
Second.
Discussion. No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now, we are now into citizen input, public appearance. And if you would like to speak tonight, please fill out a yellow form or talk to the moderator via WebEx. But I would like to say that we will only entertain comments this evening that are specific to items that are on the agenda. Also, I did add something, and I did this when I was on the school board. You'll see in the last sentence, comments that may be injurious to village personnel or other individuals will not be allowed. And I'll be I know that's very subjective, but I'll be the gatekeeper for that. So and also if anybody is willing to or going to speak at the several public hearing and action items tonight, please reserve your comments for those sections. Would anybody like to come forward? Good evening and welcome.
Sarah Larson, Butternut Road. Welcome to the new Plan Commission members. Very happy to have a new change of pace for the board and hopefully a little bit broader vision. In terms of discussing the multifamily and the percentage of rental versus owner occupied, I was very happy to see this as a discussion item only, as opposed to discussion and action, because I think it is something that's going to warrant a lot of discussion by this committee, by the village board, by the community. And so I do hope that you'll be taking into consideration the citizen input, comparables of similar character communities. The information that was provided in the packet tonight, those aren't necessarily comparable to our community and the characteristics. So those are things to consider. Also looking at national real estate trends, and as much as these high density units are attractive in other areas, the Midwest tends to be on the lagging end of that. And I think if you start following some of the articles, you're going to see that there already is a decline in that. And so by the time developers would get around to doing that here, the vacancy rates likely would be higher than what they are currently. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward? Good evening and welcome.
I also am going to comment. Oh, I'm Lynn Bednars. I live on Pawnee Court. I'm going to just comment on the discussion on multifamily units. About 3/4 of the percentage of the population of Germantown voted in our last election. And of that, 68%, which is very high, commented, aside from in all the meetings we've had, we are not open to multifamily housing at this time. We don't want it. And I think the board and our other executives should start taking consideration of what we want and what we can afford and what we can't afford. All the expenses that are attached to building these places are unbelievable, millions of dollars. And we pay for this. I worked hard all my life. I don't want to pay it for multifamily units. We like our village the way it is. It's slow. We like it that way. The percentage of people like it that way. And we'd like to keep it that way. And I don't know why everybody's pushing multifamily units. I don't care about the 250 plan, neither do most of the citizens that I talk to a lot of people wherever I go. And it's, oh, wait a minute, I got to get this here on my page here. I wrote this out. And we need to stop spending our money. We need our board to be a lot more conservative, try to save as much as we can. I have a budget in my home. people I know have budgets. We have a budget. We need a more stringent budget. And I'll tell you, I did some research on our economy. It is not that great. And I drove around this weekend to Brookfield, Wauwatosa, Mequon. I saw so many empty storefronts and so many rents.
Excuse me, will the speaker please keep on track for the
I am.
financial policy?
I am. We're talking about multifamily units and living here in Germantown and what affects our people. And these units that are available in other places are not renting like people think they are. And I'm seeing it for myself. So I just think we need to be smarter instead and quit pushing this on our residents completely. And I don't want to see my taxes go much higher than they are now. So thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak tonight? Good evening and welcome.
Okay, Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. Good evening. The reason that this subject keeps coming up and the reason that it never seems to get resolved is because when the 2050 plan was being put together, they never quite got around to discussing the neighborhood meetings. And so there are unresolved issues, and this is why it keeps coming back, because people don't quite trust the process that was in effect, at least back then or in recent times. So I'm hoping that going forward, with your statements about continually looking at the 2050 plan, that we can go back and we can look at and set up these neighborhood meetings. There's one that needs to happen at Lannon and County Line Road. There's the Holy Hill area for Woodside and the Isabel Farms. All those people were promised that there would be meetings conducted and that these kinds of issues would get sorted through. The village center is another example of that, because there's gaps in the information. It's become a contentious issue. I would also argue that because the only venue that people have to come and speak about these matters is a 3-minute slot without an actual discussion and no back and forth and vetting ideas, that it becomes really one-sided and it's a problem and it becomes contentious. So if we sit down and we actually have workshops and discussions and work through different neighborhoods, I think it will be much better. The Victory Center is another area that needs to be thought through as well. There may be some others, I don't remember exactly, but that's at least 5 neighborhoods that were skipped over. Now, the other thing that I like to bring up is context is important. And what I mean by that is what is around something already. We have a number of areas where there's already warehouses or there's already subdivisions. And when you come in and you put in something, or you want to put in something that's very different, it can cause an issue. If it's something that's a little bit different, maybe like 2 notches, that's not so difficult. So I think context is an important thing that we need to think of when we are also saying that allowable uses beside an existing use is something that needs to be taken into consideration. And I've only got 18 seconds, so I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come up and speak? Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Scott Effley, Old Farm Road. Just really 4 comments tonight. I appreciate the 2 sheets of data that I'm a statistics guy, that were put in there in regards to how we measure ourselves against other communities with density of single family and multifamily. I was a little surprised that we're on the lower end, but Mequon's right next to us. We keep talking about Mequon, and they put in a bunch of apartments and a bunch of other things in the last 10, 12 years. They were probably far behind us, and now we're almost neck and neck. I know the 2 mobile homes were kept separate, but if you throw those in there, we're at 75-25 single family versus rental or however you look at that. So we can probably move ours a little bit up, but I don't see a reason to just add 500 or 1,000 apartments or whatever it is. That's a lot of infrastructure needs that'll come in very quickly. The 2050 plan, I have a copy. I have a binder of it. I looked through it. These categories: undesirable, allowable, and desirable. Okay, density limits per acre are spelled out where what it could be, but now how many is always the question. That's the question for the people sitting here. How many is enough? How many is too much? We're just told this is what's it going to be. We're never asked, or shown. This is the first time we're shown anything about how many might actually work, and we can work off these numbers. And as part of the process that was going on here, why a lot of people are here and upset is, everybody quotes the Tracy Cross report. I'm on the Economic Development Commission. I sat up there with the Joint Plan Commission twice, and we had the Tracy Cross people here. All right. That report was paid for by Washington County to have an outside study done on next generation housing. That is single family homes. Go ask Josh Oman. Single family homes, he had a plan for that. Didn't quite work out the way he wanted. But all of a sudden now that means just rentals, okay? How we go from single family homes to rentals, that's what the Tracy Cross report was done. That's why the county paid for it. They wanted support for that effort. And that effort is kind of stalled because the real estate market has high interest rates. So, I think we got to be careful not to just assume everything. The other thing about multifamily is, if I want to build a home in Germantown, it costs me $8,444 to hook up to sewer and water, right up front, boom. And then, depending on what property taxes might be, I don't know what the average in Germantown is, but I'm guessing it's $5,000 or so, $5,500. Every single person that builds a home here is going to pay $8,440 just to hook up to sewer and water, and roughly $5,000 a year. That's $13,500 the first year they live here. And of course, those prices go up. That gives us a lot more revenue on the tax base than multi-tenant. If you put them all in one building, you say, okay, there's $40,000, but there's 40, 50 people, 60 people living there. So there's got to be a balance with that in single family homes where you're getting that steady revenue. So I don't know if anyone's ever looked at it that way, but that's how I look at it. The final thing is, Germantown is not really growing. I've said this before. Go look at the ACFR, the last 10 years average. We're only growing 1.62% a year. Maybe some people are happy about that. Maybe it's fine. But based on inflation and other costs that go up every year, we do need some economic growth. I think the real question in the room that people come here that they're upset about is, how smart are we being about it? We need to be smart about this, because every development you put in is going to need infrastructure. It's going to need roads. It's going to need expanded utilities. It's going to need more public safety. And I heard comments out there, well, the public safety won't go up just because the number of people will. Really? Go talk to the police and firefighters. They'll tell you something different. Those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward and speak tonight? Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ellen Weldon. I live at W169 North or N10672 Juniper Drive. I'm concerned about the waterways that are going to be filled in. I'm not, by my address, I'm not too far from Wetland Nursery. And I think it's inherently a bad idea to fill in wetlands. We worry about the wildlife. I know there's sandhill cranes that go there. They're protected species under federal law, not to mention the ducks and geese. And we all know what happens when a beaver builds a dam. Water is diverted. And I like my basement the way it is, dry. And I want to keep it that way. And I want to see, how would a 2,500-foot building need to access the waterways that are going to get filled in? And I would think an engineering firm would be inclined to build something on solid ground. I think it needs to be left alone. And I think about just development alone in the Germantown community, whether it's multi-unit housing, is we need to preserve our green spaces. I see subdivision after subdivision and building after building coming in. And we have already two industrial parks, or maybe the property or the building could go on there. And I just think it's important to protect what we have and safeguard it for our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else willing to come forward and speak tonight? I just want to remind everyone that if you're going to be speaking at the three or commenting at the three public hearings that we have tonight, please reserve your comments for those portions of the agenda and not during the citizen comment section. Would anyone else like to come forward? Anyone on WebEx? Okay, that concludes our citizen comments. We're now on to new business. Item A, Josh Tarantino, agent for LEW Development, property owner, and Wedland Nursery and Wedland Landscape Services, Inc. Amendment to conditional use permit number 06-1989, allowing horticultural services and the retail sale of products not grown on the property, and the site plan review for a proposed 2,560 square foot greenhouse on the property located at W172N10415 Division Road.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself from this.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. As you went through with that introduction, this is a conditional use permit request and site plan review for Josh Tarantino, applicant for LAW Development and Wedland Nursery. Property here is located off of Division Road. You can see it on screen here. Here's another vision of it. It's roughly 15 acres existing site. Project summary, as you saw in the packet, business established in the 1980s with a CUP approval in 1989 for the retail sale of products not grown on site in the nursery. Right now, this application includes the horticultural services and landscape services component and accessory snow removal services. It was mentioned the 2,500 rough square footage greenhouse too that triggers the site plan requirement. So as I mentioned, the CUP application, it is to continue to allow retail sale of products not grown on site, add in horticultural services and landscape services, and then also update and revise the conditions that were originally tied to the 1989 permit that was included in the packet. Site improvements, really the improvement that's being proposed under this application specifically is to demo a couple existing structures and implement a 2,560 square foot greenhouse building used for flex space and storing of plants and with the indoor classes that their business offers. I can let Josh speak on that a little bit more. Building plans were included in the packet. I'll have an image here. But it is a greenhouse, so tempered glass, and then the foundation is proposed to be concrete or stone. And then the other site features, just to note, they are existing. So no changes proposed to existing parking, drives, signage, landscaping, etc. Site plan here, pretty large site, 15 acres, but easier to see in the packet. We can come back and zoom in if needed. And the building plans here, again, 2,560 square feet greenhouse that's proposed to be installed on the property. So staff comments on it. Staff does find the existing use and proposed site improvement to be consistent with the A2 district standards and the comp plan. Again, CUP application is to accurately reflect current business operations and ownership. No changes proposed to the existing drive, signage, lighting, or landscaping. And staff did talk with our village engineer in regards to an existing right-of-way Division Road that fronts the property, and also Donjas Bay, an unimproved right-of-way abutting the property to the south. So you'll note a couple of conditions staff added in for the record. One is to have the applicant work with the village at a time with Division Road planned project improvement and also with access, I should say. And then also to pull back apparent encroachments that are within that unimproved right-of-way extending west of Division Road at a time that that right-of-way would be improved. So with that, staff recommendations on this would be to approve the amendment to the conditional use permit to update the conditions, allow horticultural services, and then also note the 7 conditions that were recommended by staff in the packet. And then the other recommended approval motion would be to approve the site plan for the property, which really gets down to the 2,560 square foot greenhouse that's proposed. And that is subject to 6 conditions that staff wrote in the staff memo. So with that, I can take questions, and the applicant, Josh, obviously is here. I can take questions. If you guys have questions of the applicant, we can do that now. Otherwise, it's actually up to you guys.
So on the aerial, the site plan, it looks like the 2 driveways are being used. You got an arrow going out, exit, and you get on the southern driveway, you've got the arrows going on reverse. So on the northern driveway, entrance, southern driveway's exit. Was there, my understanding from talking to the engineering department is that we'd like to eliminate one of those driveways as part of the improvement of Dodge, the roadway project that we're doing. So what's the status on that? And are they aware of that? I thought there was a discussion about that.
Yeah, discussions are ongoing. I did speak with our engineer today, and discussions are ongoing with the applicant as far as the final design or driveway access, ingress, egress. That could be something that comes about, Commissioner Warren, but we were looking at this as independent of any action or the condition tied to the site plan that would, let's say, reconfigure the driveways at this point.
So I guess my question is, are the 2 entrances critical to his operation with this new configuration that they're looking at?
For the time being, I know it is, but I'll let Josh answer for
Okay,
future planning purposes.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so the 2 driveways are critical to the operation, but the placement per se isn't as critical. So that's the part that's ongoing. It won't be cleared up until the road plan's done, which the road plan's not done. So there's a lot to figure out yet before we determine where the driveway is going to go.
Did you have discussions with the engineering department in regards to that?
Lots of them.
Lots of them?
Yep.
Okay. Is it critical for your operation to have the 2 entrances?
Yep.
And why is that?
Truck traffic and car traffic. Don't want to mix them.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep. If I can, while I'm up here, just for Ellen, there's nothing being filled. We're taking down. Can I walk away for a second? Just taking down 3 buildings here. Putting one there.
I think we have the wrong.
Oh, that's all right. No, I just wanted to let you know. So we're not filling anything at all. So it's going in the footprint of an existing structure currently that's being removed.
Any other questions?
I'm reading here, allow grading and filling within a 25-foot wetland and 75-foot navigable waterway.
I think that's,
How is that different?
It's item C in the agenda.
we're item A. Yeah.
And please reserve your comments for the public hearing. Any questions from the commissioners? Bill, any questions online?
No.
I don't have a question for Josh, but I do have a question.
Please.
This is a question I ask every time we have a CUP come up. I always have a concern with CUPs in perpetuity, meaning that they just keep getting transferred to at any point. So can you just confirm there's no termination date on this CUP? And can we add one that, as I request in every CUP, can we add one that when the ownership changes, that a new owner would be required to come in here and renew that CUP as opposed to it just transferring from one owner to the other, and we don't know what's going to happen?
Yes, you can do that, include that as a condition of approval. We have on other CUPs in the past.
Right, yeah, I agree. Okay, if we could do that again,
We get to the point of recommendations. If you want to add that as a condition, that would be great.
We're not there yet. Not yet. Not yet. The hearing's not open yet. Any other questions from the commissioners?
Public hearing.
Okay, thank you. We're now going to have a public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Village of Germantown Plan Commission at the Germantown Village Hall located at N112W17001 Mequon Road, Germantown, Wisconsin, and virtually through the WebEx platform on the following date and at the time noted below or soon thereafter, on Monday, April 28th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. or later. The purpose of said hearing is to hear all parties, their attorneys or agents for the following: application for an amendment to conditional use permit number 6-89 that allowed for the operation of nursery and retail sales of products not grown on site and associated gardening/nursery materials, and to allow horticultural services for the property described below pursuant to section 17.13 K and R of the Village Zoning Code. Applicant Josh Tarantino, agent for Wendland Nursery and LEW Development, property owner, property address W172 and 10415 Division Road. Would anybody like to come forward to speak for or against?
I'm very familiar with Wendland Nursery. I go there quite a bit, and the size of it and the extent of his business is extremely successful. And you can't have one driveway for that type of business. You got, like, when I came off of Dodges Bay to make a turn, I couldn't even get in there because you have big trucks will go in and pick things up, and then you're back traffic, and this way you have ease of exiting and ease of entry, and it's not very smart to have one driveway for a business like that. With that kind of merchandise, this isn't a corner grocery store, you know, where you're buying donuts and milk. This is where big trucks are coming in and out, and you need the two driveways to be efficient and practical and save backup on Division Road. So that's my experience because I'm there all the time. So just so you know.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to come forward for or against?
Scott Heffley, I live in Old Farm Road. I live a mile from the site and walk past it hundreds of times. I want to tell you that Elizabeth and Josh are not only chamber members, they're community supporters, and they've done a lot for this village in the 30 years I've lived here, including trimming trees when people complained when they didn't have to, and they did it at their cost, and various other things they've done. So I obviously support it. I always support local business owners. This is a family legacy business that they're carrying on. We're lucky to have them. And when I look at greenhouses, my wife loves flowers, and so I'm in and out of nurseries all day long. You know what? A nice greenhouse can really get business going and help. You know, you go to these family-run places like Miners, to a lesser extent, places like Steins and other places that are up in Slinger, and that they all have a greenhouse out there to let them, you know, show off what they can do for you. And I think it's a great idea. We're not interrupting wetlands. We're not interrupting wildlife. We're just supporting a local business. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward to speak either for or against?
I'm Justin Schweiger. My property is on Whitetail Run, butts up to Wendland Landscape, and everything they always do is great. So I approve anything they want to do to the site.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to come forward? either for or against?
Hi, my name is Marcy Lindgren. My address is N103 W17402 Whitetail Run. Our lot backs up to the Wendland Tree Nursery. My husband and I are in favor of the greenhouse. Josh and Liz have been, all they've been is nice to us. We've been there for 25 years. And I know that anything they do will benefit the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to come forward, either for or against?
Good evening. My name is Nick Gerhard. I'm on Pinewood Court, the Lone Oak subdivision right next to Wendland Nursery. I agree with this for the simple fact of what I've heard so far tonight about the traffic, the trucks coming in and out. I was for it originally because they're basically consolidating a couple, 3 buildings into one. But what was brought up tonight makes me even more positive about this development, because if you're going to have big trucks coming in, and I would assume they're going to have more plants to sell, so they'll have more foot traffic and car traffic. And if you had people trying to go from one building to another building to another building with more cars coming in and more big trucks coming in, the potential for an accident increases. So it seems like a nice, beautiful building. Ever since Flower Source went out, I think this would bring back some of the local sales possibilities. And I just think it's a win-win for everybody. And I agree with the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else willing to come forward, either for or against? Anyone online, either for or against?
No one has their hand up at this time.
Thank you. I do want to read 3 things into the minutes. This is from Tim Truckenmiller, N103W17294 Woodbridge Court, Germantown. And he filled in the fill in the blanks meeting form comment, and he is in favor of the item. And he says, I want to state my support of the request to rezone. My property is adjacent to the nursery and they have always been a good neighbor. The property is well kept and the employees are very friendly and mindful of the neighbors that have property adjacent to the nursery. Second comment is from a Cato Christie, C-R-I-S-C-I. Hello, I'm Cato Christie. I'm a resident of Germantown. I live near Wendland Nursery, and I would like to submit a few questions for tonight's hearing. 1, I would like to address some of the environmental impacts of the building on the wetland. How is this going to impact the native wildlife of the area? I would also like to ask the company proposes to do with this land, and why is this land particularly useful to them? Is a sale going to be put to a vote, or is the wind already purchased? Thank you for your time. Look forward to hearing from everyone tonight. I don't know if this is for this public hearing, might be for something else. And last but not least, from David Feldberg, F-E-L-D-B-R-U-E-G-G-E. I'm going to read this. He says, hi, Bob. First off, congratulations on winning the election for village president. I watched your first village board meeting, and I would have to say you did a good job running the meeting. Now the real reason for the email. I believe Wendland Nursery is coming up on Monday, the 28th, for the consideration to update their conditional use permit. My wife and I built our home 27 years right behind Wendland Nursery, and they have been nothing but the best neighbors you could ask for. Our backyard shares a lot line with the nursery. From going back to when Russ ran the nursery to now having Josh run the nursery, Wendland Nursery has been a great neighbor and asset to the community. We are in favor of their conditional use permit approval. One more thing, I would like to see if the future is Wetland Nursery winning back the contract for the Village Tree contract. If you could read this email into the record when the conditional use permit comes up in the next Planning Commission meeting. Thank you, David and Amy. That's all I have. Anyone else wanting to come forward? Okay, this hearing is closed. Commissioners.
I move approval of the conditional use permit number 06/1989 as noted in our notes with the 7 conditions posted.
And then if we could add an additional condition to the list of conditions to require that the CUP upon sale or other transaction involving the business where we would change ownership would require the new owner to come forth before the Planning Commission for a renewal or a reissuance of that CUP.
Just a small note, do you want to say?
Yeah, so to add to that condition, unless the sale or transfer occurs to one of the family members that's already under ownership.
Okay. Deb, did you get that?
I'm sorry, did Bob second it? And then he proceeded to add that condition in as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay, yep.
We have a motion. We have a second. Do we have any further comments?
This is a
Seeing none.
motion and a second for the additional item, is that correct?
Pardon me?
Is the motion that's on the floor right now, is that for the modification to my original proposal?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion on the amendment to the original motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Now we're going to vote on the original motion. Do I have a motion? With the amendment.
That's just for a vote, isn't it?
Pardon?
That motion's
Okay.
been made.
Discussion, then voting.
We voted on.
We voted on the amendment.
Now we would have discussion on the main motion.
Right.
Right.
We have further discussion on the main motion. Entertain a motion. With the amendment.
I'll make a motion to approve an amendment to conditional use permit CUP number 06-1989, allowing horticultural services and the retail sale of products not grown on the property for the parcel located at W172N10415 Division Road, subject to the following conditions as listed and also on the condition that was added through an amendment.
Do we have a second?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I thought I made that same motion. Did it not come through?
But we had an amendment to the motion.
Oh, yeah, okay. So then do we go back and? the
Correct.
original motion that I made, is that still on the floor?
We had an amendment to your motion.
Okay,
We voted on that. Now we're back to the original motion with the amended.
okay.
So we have,
And that's the motion that I made, correct?
Deb, can you read back the original motion and tell us who made it?
I'm with Bill. I'm confused.
Yeah, I don't know whether the audio's not coming through, but I thought I made the original motion as you closed the public hearing. You
Yep.
asked for the commissioners. I made the motion that we approve the continual use permit. Mr. Williams then proposed the amendment, which is correct, which we voted on. I would suggest that we go back and vote now on the original motion, not replace it with another one.
Correct. That's what I follow too. Yes.
correct.
Okay, guys, it's very difficult on WebEx, so I don't mean to be accusatory or anything, so please understand that.
No,
Okay,
not
well-
at all. It's just like he said, sometimes it's a little hard to follow.
Yeah,
Especially when
sometimes
Bob
the
doesn't turn
timing
his
is off.
microphone on. Bob, turn your microphone on.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. We have further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We are now on to item B. Paul and Christine,
Mr. Chair, the site plan.
oh, site plan, okay. And I apologize, this is my first plan commission meeting. I told you I was going to make mistakes, so.
Seems like it's the first one for all of us.
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan and building plans submitted by Josh Tarantino of Wendland Nursery for a 2,560 square foot greenhouse for property located at W172 and 10415 Division Road, subject to the following 6 conditions as listed.
I will
Second.
second that motion.
There.
We have a second. We have discussion. No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Welcome back. Item B, Paul and Christine Ryan, property owner, W168N12394 Century Lane. Conditional use permit application for a mother-in-law suite.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. So this is a conditional use application for property at 12394 Century Lane for a mother-in-law suite. Property located here, it's roughly 5.26 acres, currently zoned RS1. And as you mentioned already, this proposal is to request a mother-in-law suite within an existing principal dwelling. A little bit of a summary here, again, about a 5-acre parcel, RS1 zoning district. Existing 2-story dwelling with about 5,442 total square feet, which 3,300 of is living space. The proposal is to convert 1,190 square feet of the existing space into the mother-in-law suite dwelling, as you can see on the floor plan in the packet. So again, the mother-in-law suite will be part of the existing overall first floor shown here on screen, which would be the northern end of the existing structure, or on the screen, the right end. They are proposing the conversion, mainly a closet space into a bathroom and a shower, and then 2 offices into bedrooms. And 1 additional window. So staff comments, mother-in-law suite allowed in any single-family dwelling with a conditional use permit. Minimum requirements, they were listed in the packet, but also some on screen. Some of the main ones to hit on is no separate exclusive access. It can have separate bedrooms, but must share 1 room with the primary dwelling occupied by a family member. No separate utilities or mailing address, and then that percentage shall not be greater than 50% of the total living area of the overall dwelling. So that being said, staff finds that the proposal meets those stipulations for a mother-in-law suite, and the recommendation is to approve the conditional use permit and the applicants here. And I can answer any questions first, though. This is another public hearing.
Any questions, commissioners? Seeing none, we're going to go into notice of public hearing. The notice is hereby given that public hearing will be held before the Village of Germantown Plan Commission at the Germantown Village Hall located at N112 W1117001 Mequon Road, Germantown, Wisconsin, and virtually through the WebEx platform on the following date and at the time noted below, 6:30 p.m. or later. The purpose of said hearing is to hear all parties, their attorneys or agents, for or against a mother-in-law suite. Would anybody online like to speak for or against?
No one has their hand in the air at this time.
Thank you. I do have 4 emails I'm going to read, or I'm sorry, 5 emails. This is from a Diane Nass. We have known Paul and Christine Ryan for more than 15 years. We belong to the same church at Northbrook Church in Richfield. Paul and I have worked together on church projects, attended Bible study groups together. Paul and Christine have been over to our condo in Germantown. My wife Diane and I live in the Glen at Blackstone Creek subdivision in Germantown. We have no problem with Paul and Christine remodeling their home to add a mother-in-law suite. Tom and Diane Nass, W179 and 11435 Blackstone Circle. From a Jenny Hetzel. Dear members of the zoning board, I am writing to express my support for Paul and Christine Ryan, fellow Germantown residents, in their efforts to convert an addition on their home into a mother-in-law suite. The scope of the project includes a single window, additional closet space, and a bathroom. It represents a thoughtful enhancement to their property while also aligning with the values of our community. The proposed mother-in-law suite has the potential to welcome additional residents to Germantown. This could strengthen the fabric of our neighborhood by fostering a multi-generational living and accommodating loved ones or extended family members in a safe, independent, and comfortable space. I believe this initiative demonstrates responsible planning and consideration, as it will benefit the Ryans and support the growth and inclusivity of Germantown. I kindly urge the board to give favorable consideration to their proposal. Thank you for your time and attention on this matter. Please do not hesitate to contact me should you require further details or input. Sincerely, Jennifer Hetzel. From a Holly Portner, Poertner, N104 W14651 Dongers Bay Road, Germantown. Good afternoon. I'm writing to give my support to Paul and Christine regarding the addition of a mother-in-law suite. Ryans are all about family and including people and caring for them. My feeling is that what we all long for in our community, strong families, supporting each other in practical ways. Please consider a yes for Ryan's move to Ford on April 28th. From a Gail Lutke, Luedtke, and Diane Takla, Takal, W168 and 12350 Century Lane, Germantown. As neighbors residing immediately south of the Ryans, we have no objection for a conditional use permit to be issued for a mother-in-law suite on the property listed above. Unfortunately, we are unable to attend this public hearing, but again, we see no reason why this permit cannot be issued. And finally, from Denny and Kelly Yunk, YUNK, W154 and 11877 Daniels Road, or Daniels Drive, Germantown. Dear members of the zoning board, we are writing to express our full support of Paul and Christine Ryan and their request for authorization to create a mother-in-law suite at their home located at W168 and 1294 Century Lane. We have known the Ryans for nearly 10 years and can personally attest to their thoughtfulness, responsibility, and commitment to maintaining the character and integrity of their neighborhood. Their proposed project will not only enhance the functionality of their home, but will also allow them to provide important care and support for their family. We believe that this improvement will have a positive impact on the community and strongly encourage the board to approve their request. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Denny and Kelly Yunk. Any other comments from folks in the room from WebEx, either for or against? Okay, this public hearing is closed. Commissioners. Make a motion.
Make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for Paul and Christine Ryan to allow a mother-in-law suite accessory dwelling as part of the single-family dwelling located at W168 and 12394 Century Lane, subject to the following 4 conditions.
Second.
Discussion.
I just want to verify, Deb, did you get that?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Discussion? No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to item C. Parish Survey and Engineering Agent for Matt Sabin and TLC Acres, property owner W210 N10738 Appleton Avenue. Site plan review for 5,200 square feet building and a conditional use permit application to allow grading and filling within a 25-foot wetland and 75-foot navigable waterway setback.
Thank you, Mr. President. A little history. The Sebins own the 53.4 acre parcel on Appleton Avenue as highlighted on the screen. Back in 2019, they applied for and were granted a conditional use permit to add some additional uses to the proposed tree nursery uses that they had initiated on their property. As part of the CUP process, the property was rezoned from A1 to A2 to accommodate horticultural services, and the CUP also granted additional rights to for the retail sale of nursery and other products not raised on the property, and also to lease property to MSTLC Total Lawn Care, a landscape maintenance and construction services operation that operates from a portion of the property. Also, as some of you may remember, at that time, Matt Sebin had initiated some filling on the property to create what he referred to as tiers, within which trees and other nursery stock would be planted. Tier 1 adjacent to Appleton Avenue was completed in 2018, and Tier 2 is actively being filled with no final completion date at this point in time. This graphic shows the site layout in a general sense for the uses on the site at the time the CUP was approved. Another graphic shows a close-up version of the area where the building and building addition that we'll be talking about later this evening are located on the property. Tonight's proposal includes two items: a site plan application for the proposed construction of a 5,200 square foot storage building, 50 by 104 square feet, 11,000 square feet of asphalt paving of some existing internal driveways on the site, and also the construction of an on-site stormwater basin to service existing and future runoff from the existing buildings, the proposed building, and also future building area up to 10,000 square feet and additional asphalt area up to 30,000 square feet. The second item is a conditional use permit to allow for the encroachment of some of that construction activity into a wetland and navigable stream setback area. There is no actual wetland filling or encroachment. It's actually just into the village's enforced 25-foot setback and 75-foot navigable setback from the essentially from the edge of the wetlands and the high water mark of the navigable waterway. I'm going to jump to a couple of graphics here. This graphic shows the overall proposed site plan, and I'm going to window in here on the west side. This portion of the site plan shows the existing 40 by 60 square foot, 2,400 square foot building on the site. It's a metal storage building. The addition that's proposed is highlighted in blue, and the proposed asphalt is highlighted in gray adjacent to the south side or east side of the buildings on the property. This graphic shows elevations for the proposed building, floor plan for the building addition, I should say. And this graphic shows a focus in on the east side of the site plan that shows the stormwater basin that's proposed to be constructed and some additional areas that are to be filled as part of both the tier filling project and additional fill on the east side of the property. As I mentioned, the construction of the stormwater basin and some swales adjacent to the drainage ditch that runs through the property is encroaching into the setback areas, 57,650 square feet, 1.3 acres of encroachment into that setback area. And as I mentioned, the village enforces that setback area, allows encroachment into a setback area with compensation. In this case, the owner proposes to compensate with more than the 57,000 square foot of encroachment. They're compensating in two different areas. In this case, the green area is shown here. We'll have just under 22,000 square feet of compensation, and the blue area, just over 41,000 square feet, for a total of 63,000 square feet plus of compensation, to be comprised of the planting of native species, forbs, and grasses in those areas to provide additional buffering to the wetland and the navigable waterway. Some staff comments. The current A2 zoning with the agricultural activities that are ongoing and proposed are desirable under the 2050 plan for the Willow Creek Wiedenbach neighborhood. The storage building and asphalt paving will, in a manner of speaking, provide additional enhancement to the site in terms of appearance, storage of some of the equipment, and also the paving will reduce tracking of dirt onto Appleton Avenue, or at least aid in that mitigation measure. There is a minimum 50-foot building setback requirement that applies. The existing building on the site currently is located at about no closer than 34 feet to the edge of the property line. The existing building can stay. The addition needs to be relocated to meet that 50-foot setback. That's something that we'll have to discuss further with the applicant. The original CUP number 08-2019 will need to be revised to reflect these new improvements, assuming they are approved, and that would be an amendment to the CUP that was advertised in the notice and would simply be reflected or reference made to these improvements prior to village board action. I mentioned the drainage ditch that runs through the property. In last year in 2024, the DNR made a navigability determination on that ditch, and therefore created effectively another layer of government. Within 500 feet of the navigable waterway, the DNR regulates activity, and additional permits may be required depending upon the type of activity within that 500 feet of that navigable waterway. In the village's case, we, in addition to the CUP, the site plan, we do have an existing erosion control permit that will need to be revised to reflect the additional development and filling and grading that's proposed as part of this project. And one last item, as some of you know, the villages, actually throughout Washington County, our FEMA flood insurance rate maps, our firms have been revised. They have not gone into effect just yet, but they will go into effect in 2025. As a result of those new maps, the village will have to revise its floodplain zoning code to reflect those new maps. And as a result, the new 100-year floodplain boundary shown on those maps is going to impact additional property, including the TLC Acres property. On this graphic, you can see on the left shows the existing 100-year floodplain boundary. If you can't see it, it's hard to see because it stops at Hilltop Road on the right side of the photograph. You can see a small light blue dashed line. The revised firm maps show an expanded 100-year floodplain boundary as shown on the graphic on the right. And as you can see, 100-year floodplain area encroaches into the TLC Acres property. So depending upon when the maps become effective and when the filling is done, some of the filling that's proposed as part of this project may require additional permitting if it can be done at all. but we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. One of the conditions I put in the staff report basically points that out, that approval of the site plan doesn't necessarily grant any sort of vested right to filling once those new firm maps become effective. So we'll have to deal with that as time goes on. One final comment, the village engineer has identified some grading and stormwater technical corrections that need to be made to the plan and or the stormwater management plan. That is a condition of approval as well. With all of that, the staff recommendations are to recommend approval of a conditional use permit to allow encroachment into the 25-foot wetland and 75-foot navigable waterway setbacks as presented in the Wetland and Navigable Waterway Compensation Plan, copy of which is in the packet, for the TLC Acres property, subject to 4 conditions. And finally, staff recommendation to approve the site development building plans for a 5,200 square foot accessory building addition, stormwater management basin, and asphalt paving subject to 10 conditions, all of which are in the staff report. With that, I would say that Evan Nicodem is here on behalf of the property owner. Evan, did you have some additional comments you want to make?
Am I on? I'm not on. Now I'm on. Sorry about that. Evan Nicodem, 122 Wisconsin Street in West Bend, Wisconsin for Paris Survey and Engineering. Thank you, Jeff. Generally speaking, no, I don't really have any additional comments other than the fact that we've been back and forth with Jeff on a number of issues, and we'll take care of the technical comments from the engineering side. No issues with those. I could go on, but I think you described things clear enough. The one main point, I just want to make sure that we are aware that this, we're not proposing any wetland filling. We are proposing filling within the setbacks. The wetlands were delineated, the navigable stream was delineated, and we're staying away from that. One of the reasons, if you could just scroll back to the screen with the pond, I just want to explain why. One more where the pond is. That's fine. So the pond is away and outside of the 75-foot setback for the navigable waterway. Yet there's grading that's a lot closer to that 75-foot setback as you proceed to the west. The reason for that is that's already an active work area that they've been using for many years. And I also have to have a drainage pathway to collect the water from that north or the westerly side to get to the pond. So I'm using that area as my route to route water to that basin, and that's why that area is closer to that 75 or in that 75-foot setback, where the other areas are areas that we're looking to fill and continue the active operation. So, and that's outside of the 75-foot setback. I also did find out from Washington County, I was able to talk to them on Friday, and they were thinking that the floodplain would actually be adopted. They were thinking 2025, but the last I heard was 2026 and possibly February of 2026, speaking with Washington County on Friday. Now, none of that's set in stone. So much of that is dependent upon the DNR and when they actually provide their final comments and when that floodplain is finalized. So those are the issues with the pond and the floodplain, the filling operations. Obviously, we want to, because we understand that the floodplain issue is out there, we want to make sure we get as much of that fill in as possible. Obviously, we want to continue. There was one other issue with stop work order that happened, and it was an issue, I think, related to the need for an erosion control permit. They have submitted an erosion control permit to the village, and the village is just waiting on the results of this meeting in order to issue the erosion control permit so they can continue to work in some of those other areas. So it's a little bit different model, the way Mr. Saban is trying to do this by filling and creating tiers for agriculture, but this is what he's decided to do, and he hasn't found any legal reason why he can't do it, because he wants to continue agricultural. Now, whether it's growing trees or crops or something, he hasn't expressed exactly what that is, but that's what his plan is. So I'm done speaking if anybody has any questions.
Commissioners, questions for the applicant or staff?
I have a question for Jeff. The setback that we'd be using, the 75 foot, and I think was it 25 foot in the other place, that doesn't affect really the wetlands. It only affects our setback rule, correct?
Yes, the 25-foot setback is a wetland setback enforced by the village. It goes from the edge of the wetland outward. And that 75-foot setback is also a village enforced setback, both of which require compensation in the form of enhanced buffering, for lack of a better phrase, if there is any encroachment into those setback areas.
Okay, so we'd be seeing some improved conditions by what they do for their compensation. Plus, we wouldn't really affect the wetlands themselves. Am I correct in assuming that then?
That's correct. There's no wetland impact proposed as part of this project.
Yeah, I agree with the one commenter somebody made. I think she had the wrong project tonight. But I believe that we should take steps to help help a contractor do his work, So I appreciate what you told me. Thank you.
Thank you.
You answered my question.
Thank you. Any other questions?
My question was just if whatever's filled now before the map is adopted, they can't go back on them later to make them remove that, or they can?
No, they can't. Actually, what they can do is go through the process of formally acknowledging and recognizing that that area has now been filled.
They'll have to update
and show it on another revised map. It's sort of an odd situation in that, think of it. Show the graphic. Now, the current floodplain map is on the left, right?
Yeah.
The proposed one is on the right. Assume there's no change in topography, and there will be floodplain on the TLC acre property when the maps become effective. But right now, it doesn't apply, and we've been advised we can't do anything to hold back a property owner from legally filling property, provided they have all the other permits and approvals they need. So this isn't the first and only project like this in the village. There are others where property owners are savvy enough to know that there's a map, a floodplain map, that's going to become effective down the road and may impact their property. So they're filling it now so they can effectively avoid that floodplain issue down the road.
That was my only question. Thank you.
Right, and if there was to be some sort of a building construction, then you might need to do like a LOMA or LOMAR, a map amendment. But in this case, since they're planning on farming, we're not going to worry about it. So what if the floodplain is there, even though the elevation is high enough that it doesn't affect the farmland?
Any other questions? Yes.
Your emergency spillway, is that above what we would anticipate that floodplain elevation to be?
Yes, I did design that with the consideration that the new floodplain would be in effect. Yes.
And since this is my actual area of expertise, I do appreciate all of the extra stormwater information provided in this packet. I'm sure others may not have appreciated all the extra pages, but I did read through all of those and did appreciate all of the comments provided by the village engineer.
Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into
Public hearing.
Public hearing. A notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Village of Germantown Plan Commission at the Germantown Village Hall, located at N112W17001, Mequon Road, Germantown, Wisconsin, and virtually through the WebEx platform on the following date and at the time noted below, Monday, April 28th, 2025, 6:30 p.m. or later. The purpose of said hearing is to hear all parties, their attorneys, or agents for the following application: conditional use permit application to allow grading and filling in portions of 25 feet of wetland and 75 feet of navigable waterway setback pursuant to section 24.04 3C5 of the Village Zoning Code and to amend the conditional use permit number 08-2019 as necessary for the properties described below. Applicant, Parish Survey and Engineering Agent for Matthew and A.B. Sabin. Property owners, address W210N10738 Appleton Avenue. Would anyone like to come forward to speak for or against? Good evening. Welcome.
I get a little nervous about these kind of things, so my temperature changes a lot. The thyroid thing. Found out a year ago that I was 2/3 shutting down. So on top of all the rest of this, I've been coming back around to a whole person. I live directly across, my name is Tanya Kapp. I live directly across the street from TLC Acres on Appleton Avenue, West 210, North 10735. If you put up a property thing, you'll see the one. I'm not sure what I should be talking about here exactly, other than it has been almost 8 years of nonstop construction and dump trucks that use hydraulic dumps that we continue to have to come before the village board to address the noise nuisance, and that we get 1/7 of a life here, because 6 days a week, we don't get to enjoy good weather. We don't get anything really close to a farming residential life. So I can't help but be up here to oppose it, because I know what it's like to live across the street from. I also know what it's like to have somebody come to my door and say, would you like to speak on our behalf in regards to another nursery that wants to expand what they're doing, as this one is over 3 times the size of what you're doing, and most of it is not a nursery. There's barely anything growing ever. Most of it is retail. So as a place in an area that's a neighborhood that's supposed to be farming and residential, I'd like to farm and reside in my house and enjoy it. But when those trucks do the dumping thing, I have 4 seconds of a video that I recorded today because I happened to be outside, and it rattles the entire area. I took a longer video, but I narrowed it down so that you wouldn't have to hear any of my comments about what was going on. But that's just the retail part. So if they go back into raising ground level 25 feet more and no end in sight, as was the last time that we came to these village board meetings to oppose these things, was that there's no end in sight. There is no plan for this to end. It's been going on almost 8 years and is nonstop. Not just the fill-in, but what I recorded today was a dumping of the mulch. They get deliveries all the time. They can be the largest semi-trailers that you've ever seen. There are cars, trucks. It's the home base for all the businesses, the landscaping, the hardscaping, the softscaping, the snow plowing, the taking care of yards, the general everything that they do, plus the retail business, plus a burn pit. Like, I had to take video of ash raining down over my entire area and like feeling it disintegrate into my fingers. It's just everywhere. There's just, and the last time that I said stuff about it, they said, well, did you call us and complain? Yes. Did you call the city and complain? Yes. When the fire thing was happening, I sure did. But I don't feel like as neighbors, it's neighborly to have to babysit a $1 million business that has 54 times the size of what I have. I have a 1,000 square foot house. Put that into perspective. You know, like my house leaks. I have a lot of things to be taken care of. I would like to get back to that, but I have to be here tonight because I know that they want to have permission to do more than they've already been doing. And it is so hard to live through. I just turned 50 this year. I lost my dad in 2017, and together we have owned this property for 14 years. The time that I've spent here, the last almost 8, it's hard to plan a future here. I grew up in Sussex. I graduated from Sussex Hamilton. I've been a business owner twice in my life. Once in Menominee Falls. I lost that business in 2020. It took 3 years to resolve that. You know, it's really a struggle to live across the street from this place. And I don't know what my options are. I don't know what to do anymore. Like, it's scary to come up here. It's nerve-wracking to talk about something when somebody who has that much power lives across the street from you. If they get mad at me, what? I can't even go outside without a mask on if it's westerly wind. Like, and that's why I'm like, oh, I would be all for the cement, you know, the drive being covered because the dust is terrible. But like, I can't agree with the rest of it. And I know you say the wetlands aren't being filled in, but the whole permit is worded to say that it's wetland filling in and raising 25 feet. And again, last time they had no foreseeable end to this 6 out of 7 days a week. The only permanent sign they have is a sign that says, now accepting fill. And they've had that there for years, Monday through Saturday. So we get 1/7 of a life. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to come forward either for or against? And can we put the clock up? Or is it possible? Good evening and welcome.
Jerome Powell, no, not the Fed chairman, just the same name. West 210, North 10750, Appleton Avenue. I'm the property owner to the north of TLC. Now, your letter here I got for this public hearing is a little misleading to me because it says it's a conditional use permit for wetland grading on the property. Now, from what I understand hearing, you're gonna protect the wetlands, but you're gonna bring in more fill 25 feet higher from the creek. I was against all the fill coming into this property to begin with. Whatever they raise theirself up, it lures me down. And there's a quarter, my northeast quarter of my property is wetland. So is that gonna change my property? That's what I'm concerned about. There is a limited plantings on the property now. We all kind of expected to be more of a planting, other than it seems to be more retail. But I'm against all the noise and the dust. So I don't know what that's going to create. I don't know. How much fill are they planning to bring in? Is it going to be a lot more fill? The way I hear it, it's going to be a lot more fill coming in. I'm against that. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wanting to come forward either for or against? Good evening. Welcome.
I am Sharon Gleister, West 210, North 10743, Appleton Avenue, directly across the street from TLC Acres. I mean, our driveways are almost right across. I was back here in 2019, also concur with Jerry, where we were thinking it was going to be more like farming or more plant related. I don't see any really that much in plants, more trees, I guess a little bit, but the noise is so crazy. And I can't imagine with more development that I'm going to have even more noise across the street. I don't know, at least 10 times a day while I'm trying to work remote from home. It is so loud. I get up 10 times a day going, is something in my yard? Is something happening? Did a truck drop something? It is that crazy loud. I mean, insanely loud. And I'm just thinking with more development, we're going to have more trucks. I know when I talked with Dennis back in 2019 and 20, Dennis Meyer, he had said they got over 100 trucks a day. I mean, can you imagine if you lived across something that noisy, that ridiculous? It was just a lot. And now they want to propose to do more work, more things. Plus back then, those tiers, I don't think it was anticipated that it was going to take 15 years to get to tier 3, and we're in tier 2 and they don't have any end in sight. I mean, they were supposed to have dates as to when they were supposed to finish those tiers. And we still don't have any end dates. It's still going to be an ongoing issue forever. And I just can't imagine going through more of this and getting worse. And like he said, we're having over 100 trucks a day. I can't imagine what we're going to have now if we have more trucks coming in, doing more fills and so forth. So I do agree the whole asphalt thing might help with the dirt in the roads and all that. But I'm going to tell you, I can't even tell you how many accidents in front of my house and in front of their place we have. At least 2 mailboxes a year. I see, the other day I came home, there's car parts in my driveway, my mailbox, my newspaper box gets knocked down all the time. That's how much traffic comes through there, that there's just carelessness, and it's crazy. It's just crazy. So to me, I fear for what's going to come with more development and more things that are going to be coming through there. Unless they can come off of the other road or some other area, but we only have one driveway, and it's every truck, I mean, goes through there. All hours of the day too. I mean, it's been a little better late night, like 11 at night, but there's still a lot of trucks coming and going, even their landscapers, their snow removal, all that. That was another issue back then, is all the night hours and all the lights flashing into our houses. And I just can't even imagine what this new development is going to be. So I hope you guys take into consideration the neighbors, because we really felt it was going to be more farming, more landscaping than all this noise and all this fill and all these trucks. And it's a lot to take for a neighbor. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else willing to come forward, either for or against? Good evening. Welcome.
Bob Litzo, Oak Lane, Germantown. I actually live off the map, but I can tell you that I hear everything that these other homeowners that live next door hear. And I'm probably a quarter to a half mile away, almost around the clock. If it's not dumping in the summer with trucks, you can hear the snowplow people come there and loading the salt out of the salt shed there at 2 or 3 in the morning. They were not a good fit on this property in 2019, and they got what they wanted then, and now they're back again. And I just don't think they're certainly not a neighbor like Wentland is. When I heard the other people speak here tonight, this operation hasn't done one good thing to embrace the people in the neighborhood. They want to put up a building, 5,200 square feet. I didn't hear anything about a bathroom. There's one portalet there I counted tonight, probably 8 or 9 or 10 trucks there. Excavators, you name it, everything's there. They're just getting bigger and bigger. They're going to go all the way up to where the wetland is, and then probably beyond. A portalet, any other business that would come and want to put a building up would not be allowed to run 2 operations out of there now. It's not just theirs, it's obviously somebody else's they're leasing to. So these people are closer than I am. I don't have to see it, they see it every day. And that is a bad corner. It always has been a bad corner. There's a blind corner there to somewhat. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to come forward, either for or against?
I know nothing about what's happening here, except I'm listening to homeowners, and my heart goes out to these people that spend their life savings living in their home, trying to put up with issues such as this. And I really think before a vote is put on this, I think the board should consider looking at this a little closer. And I respect the business, but I think they should also respect the results of what they do, how it affects people who have their life savings invested in their homes and living there. It's very important to have a peaceful life if you can. And so I think that you should look more into this plan and see if there's something that can be done to help the neighbors.
Thank you. Anyone else willing to come forward, either for or against? Good evening and welcome.
Thanks. My name is Michael Kessler. I live northwest of this property, just north of the creek on the opposite side of the road. I don't disagree at all with anybody saying. I'm not for or against necessarily, but I just want to bring some awareness here. 10 years ago, we drilled a well in our property and we hit an artesian well. And the thing is pumping out about 80 gallons a minute going into that creek. The DNR was there helping navigate everything, but there's a lot of water coming out. This hasn't slowed down at all in 10 years. I'm a little concerned about if we're keep filling this area up, where's all this water going to continue to go to? So that's my concern. You can ask some questions if you want to. Everything else these people, my neighbors, have talked about, absolutely true. Don't disagree with anything there, but I just wanted to bring awareness to this water in the creek. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to come forward, either for or against? Good evening and welcome.
I am Angela Galashewski, N109 W20905 Mount Brook Drive. I received the notice in our mail. I think only part of our subdivision did, and I'm not sure if it's because we're on the south lower Mount Brook area. But I know with the waterway, somewhere back in the woods is the beginning of the river, that the waterway that they're talking about. So personally, I'm wondering whether that would affect my well or any of the areas in my yard. Another concern, because this is supposed to be agricultural use, although you're planning to approve or considering approving them for increased retail, I read through the plan and the review. First of all, the forms themselves seem to be incomplete. The site plan review, number 4, isn't initialed by the owner at all. The conditional use permit, number 8, is not initialed. All of those items are not initialed. And the stormwater management permit is not signed by the property owner, only the planner. And looking at what their plans for the building, they have kind of plans for now and plans for later. And for building, their plan for now is 5K, and that's for a man cave, for a family man cave. So that's not even business related. And then potentially 10,000 more later. And then right now it's for 11,000 square feet of pavement, and then planned 30,000 later. My concern is, again, is where is the agricultural part of that plan? And if they're increasing their retail, has a traffic study been done? I mean, they've been talking about the trucks, but even long-term, would a traffic study be done for increased trucks and vehicles, both for their storage company that they're leasing to, as well as their customer base. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to come forward, either for or against? Good evening and welcome.
Tom Steinbach, the resident just south of the property on Hilltop Drive, W204 North 10609. And I have been involved with this project, obviously, very closely because of where we live. And I know Matt quite well now as a result of that, because we have had conversations back and forth personally. And we've spoken about filling mainly. It's a quality of life issue that's a big one. You've heard it from these people. They have it a lot worse than I do. But we've been affected by the noise. We've been affected by the vibrations. I can't prove it, but I've got cracks in drywall that I think are a result of that in my 75-year-old home. And I can't imagine going through another 5 years of the filling. I heard tonight that the village has no control over someone who wants to fill their property. I find that hard to believe because this is altering the landscape dramatically. And if you go and look at that property in a wet period of time, it's flooded. So it's obviously a floodplain. Maybe it's not on the floodplain maps, but it's obviously a floodplain. Last year, they dug a pond into the property just to the north of us. They also started stripping topsoil. So it's a mess. It's an ugly mess now. We met with Matt Stephen at the library in 2019. There was about 14 of us there that met with Matt and his wife. And Matt promised us that it would be over in 2 years. Here we are, still seeing a lot of trucks. And we're still facing a lot more filling, apparently. And what for? Is this a cash cow for Matt? Take fill? You know, these areas that he's looking at filling, what's he going to do with it? Let's have a plan. Let's have an end date, like someone mentioned. There's just no end date to this. And I think we deserve that as neighbors to know when this is going to stop. Compare it to a subdivision. There's a developer plan. It's done quickly. They're done. They're out of there. The streets are paved. People do their lawns. It's done. Not this project. This seems to go on forever and ever. So I think this group would be very wise in putting a break on this permit or this CUP or whatever it's called, to get these matters resolved and get some controls so that we can protect the quality of life that's been eroded out there for quite a long time. And I think now is the time to do this because you've got the control. You've got the control of issuing this or not. He wants to expand. Well, then you're going to have to do this, this, and this, and this to protect your neighbors. You guys can do that. We can't. So we ask for your help to put the brakes on it, do the controls, make sure he knows what he can and can't do in the future. Because I don't think we're going to shut him down. We can't shut him down. You know that. But I believe this body has the control to do the right thing for the neighbors to protect the quality of life out there. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else willing to come forward, either for or against? Come forward.
I haven't really thought about the wetland and the floodplain thing before. But I have thought a lot about the well because mine is grandfathered in as it's about 100-year-old property. I have a lot of concerns about that, but recently with some things have started to kind of fall apart in my house and a little leaking going on and my chimney fell apart. But I have noticed that in the last 5 years, a certain area of my property starts to flood pretty much every year. It didn't used to do that. And so I now wonder, should I be starting to put a sign in my yard that says I'm now accepting fill? I do wonder, because if you guys can't control that, how much they fill, where they fill, when they fill, no end in sight, then what choice do I have? It seems like that's the first time I've really considered the fact that I'm the lowest point in the valley. So they're making my property like a flood hole. So I guess if you can't, I guess it just sets a precedent then, like I've said before at the previous meetings, what they can do, I can do if I'm farming residential and they're farming residential. Then I guess if you can't stop them from filling their property, I should take my back hill and fill in the lowlands, right? I don't know. It's really frustrating, but I felt like that was a good point to add.
Thank you.
Tanya, can you tell us what your address is?
West 210, North 10735, Appleton Avenue, directly across the street from the main part of the dustiest part of TLC Acres.
Anyone else wanting to come forward, either for or against? Anyone on WebEx willing to speak? Either for or against?
There are no hands in the air at this time.
I
Thank
have my
you.
hand raised if I could speak.
Sorry, missed you.
That's okay. Can everyone hear me in the room?
Yes, your name and your address, please.
Yes, my name is Sarah Bojarski. I live on Oak Lane. My address is N105 W21151 Oak Lane. I'm also a neighbor that is tucked away. Appleton Avenue is a cross intersection for me to get into my neighborhood. And the paperwork that came out from the village did state that it was about wetland grading. And so I did just a quick research, Google search actually about wetland grading, and it's not good. You know, it's essentially diverting waterways, and it's not good for the environment. It's not good for animal habitat either, among other things. So I'd like you to take that into consideration, number one. I'd also like to state my opinion that I am disappointed that staff would recommend this for a positive recommendation. As stated before, TLC Acres has not been a good neighbor. It has been ongoing for many, many years without an end in sight. I'm sort of jealous that Wendland has been a good neighbor to that neighborhood over there. Unfortunately, that has not been the case for our neighbors here. I'm tucked away, but we do get effects here on Oak Lane from the business across Appleton Avenue. It shakes the neighborhood. It's dirty, it's noisy, and there's dump trucks every single day on our commutes in and out of our neighborhood. I know there aren't a lot of people that are familiar with where this is. Even my own trustee has to travel across town to see what I'm talking about when I discuss this with them. Again, the trucks shake the neighborhood. It's dirty, noisy. It's never ending. I'm frustrated that this is, continues to go on and on and on. I would like to request that we deny this conditional use permit and that there be a little bit more scrutiny put on what TLC Acres is able to do on this property, specifically with this wetland issue. I just went past the area earlier this afternoon. There is, flooding already on parts of the property. We need to protect our area, not only environmentally, but the noise pollution, it is out of control, and the dirt pollution as well. So I'd like to ask for more scrutiny on this property, what they're allowed to do, and to slow walk this conditional use permit, and to perhaps put some more regulation in place so that they can become a better neighbor for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to come forward, either for or against?
Give me just a second. There's a bunch of people on here I have to scroll through. Can't see them all. Sorry, I missed you, Sarah. Nope, no one else.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in this room wanting to come forward, either for or against? Okay, seeing none, this public hearing is closed. Commissioners. Commissioner Warren.
First of all, I'm sorry for what the neighbors are going through. Noise, vibrations, dust, doesn't add up to a nice place to live. Jeff, is there a history of violations of TLC, or what's their initials again? TLC? Any history of violations of any requirements that we put on them as far as limiting the hours of trucking or the days or anything like that?
No, we don't have any restrictions on the truck traffic. When the permit was issued in 2019, Mr. Sieben indicated then that the tier 1 was going to be completed or had been completed at that point in time, and that ongoing filling of tier 2 would continue on without a definitive deadline. Now, we heard tonight that Mr. Sieben presumably or apparently told property owners that there was a deadline of 2 years. I don't know. Mr. Sieben's not here to respond to that. If Evan, if you don't know. But as far as your question, complaints, no.
Okay, so
there's no violations of any permit provisions in the conditional use permit that was adopted in 2019.
So the big question is, what's in front of us here is approval of conditional use permits. Is this the vehicle that we use to try to encourage this business to try to address the concerns of the neighbors?
Yes, I think you could do that. I mean, essentially what's being asked for is an expansion of the business to a degree. Now, Evan, maybe you can address that. Is the additional 5,000 square foot building, is that intended to accommodate more trucks and more vehicles and more business, or is it simply to handle existing operations?
Yeah, good question. And the answer is it is intended to be a shop and a storage for existing equipment. And what I had also planned in the stormwater management plan was in the future, if he decides to expand that building to 10,000 square feet, to continue to store equipment indoors versus outdoors, or have a shop to work on equipment indoors versus outdoors. That's already written into the stormwater management plan. So the point of the conditional use permit is really to continue operation of the business. That's really the main point of the conditional use permit. And the building, like you said, like I say, is supposed to contain and house existing equipment.
The one thing I would like you to expand on is, apart from the building in the stormwater basin, this site plan shows proposed grading across the site, correct?
Yes.
And just to the east south and east of the proposed stormwater basin lies the tier 2 and areas that are beyond the tier 2 that are shown to be proposed for filling anywhere from, correct me if I'm wrong, 1 to 7 feet.
Something about that. It gets us above the floodplain elevation.
So right now, the low spot in that area east of the stormwater basin is at an elevation of about 847.
Yes. Yes.
And the proposed finished grade elevation is about 853. So there's a significant amount of fill that's being brought in on that area east of the stormwater basin, pretty much all the way over to Hilltop Drive.
Right, and that would continue Mr. Saban's concept of creating a higher tiered farming area or agriculture area. That's what he's envisioned, and that's what he's looking to do. Yes.
Right. And that filling isn't subject or requires a conditional use permit to be approved. That's, one of the ongoing activities on the property that is really subject to the erosion control permit. And as long as the erosion control measures are put in place, he can continue to do that. And that was what was addressed back in 2019. But there was, I would venture to say that in 2019, Mr. Sieben was a little bit more sure that there was an end in sight to the tier 2 filling. Now what we're seeing is a plan that shows not only tier 2 being filled, but now a much larger area even further east, and there's definitely no end in sight.
I'd have to say with the knowledge that the floodplain elevation is going to change in this area, obviously there's some urgency. But does that mean, I don't know what volumes he can bring in. He's been very selective about the fill that he's bringing in. He just doesn't want any old, dirty fill. He wants clean fill. And so he's been pretty selective about it. And that's part of what he's trying to create here. But and yes, he is trying to go east, and yes, he will try to get into those areas this summer. Yes.
So knowing that the floodplain maps become effective possibly as late as February of 2026, a year from now, then the race is on to try and bring in as much fill to achieve his goal of filling up to 853 elevation.
Well, and it may not even be filling in everything behind there, but it would be creating a berm to segregate the areas from the drainage ditch and the drainage way. And again, I'm the engineer, so I can say, yes, this is what I put on paper, but I'm not the business guy, bringing in loads of dirt. And I know he's doing the best he can. He does want it finished. He doesn't want this going on forever.
Right. And he submits a monthly report, if you will. He sends an email telling us how many loads of fill have been brought in the last month. And, sometimes it's 7 loads or 20 loads, and literally there's got to be thousands that would need to fill.
Yeah, over the last couple of months, yeah, it's winter, there's not a lot of work going on, and during the summer months, yes, he's expecting that it will ramp up, yes. But he's also got hours of operation too that he's trying to maintain. That's something that is in the CUP, is hours of operation for the business, correct?
He's tied to the hours of operation for the landscaping operation, yes. The filling, the part that the people are complaining about is the trucking in of the fill to raise the elevation of the tillable land. And that's not subject of anything other than the erosion control permit.
Right. We do understand that.
And those conditions are simply make sure you've got your measures in place so it protects, the soil leaving the site.
Right. Yes. And we've submitted the permit application to the village. Yes. Yes.
And I think where you're going, Jeff, is that they're trying to beat the deadline on this revised 100-year floodplain. You're going to see more trucking as they try to get that fill in before these new maps go into place, right?
That's my guess.
It's only going to get worse. Yeah. So from Mr. Nicodem, Nicodem, I think I know you. As far as some of the concerns that were raised as far as flooding, groundwater, and those issues, any executive summary, is there, from an engineering perspective, is there an issue there?
Specifically groundwater, no, there's nothing because everything's above ground, so there shouldn't be any impacts to groundwater. Floodplain, if tomorrow they enact this floodplain and it goes all the way up here, well, presumably there could have been flooding up this way earlier, but it's not regulated per se. You could also argue that any lot has a floodplain. It doesn't matter where you are. if you get 100-year rain, there will be water on your lot. Whether that's regulated or not, that's the question. So at this point, it's not regulated. Tomorrow, whenever it's actually enacted, then it will be regulated. So at this point, is there concerns? No, I mean, the culvert itself under Hilltop is what holds the water back. And that's the reason that they've decided to delineate floodplain to the west of Hilltop. So the culvert's not going to change. We're not changing anything under Hilltop. So the water that's still going there is still going to go there, and it's still going to back up on Mr. Saban's property.
Okay, last question. If we deny this, with the goal of trying to get them to be a better neighbor, what's the mechanism of it? How can we do that? I'm just confused how that would all come about.
That's a good question. The complaints are noise, vibration from the trucks that are bringing in the fill. Presumably, you know, when they dump and then they let the door slam to kind of.
Well, they got vibrators in the back part too.
Yeah. I mean, what we've done with other businesses is we in fact, Mr. Saban indicated when his original permit was proposed that his trucks were going to have white noise backup devices.
Yeah.
You know, what we've learned since then is that even those white noise devices are more irritating than the beep, beep, beep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Be that as it may. But it's those items. I don't know, other than through the erosion control permit, if in fact, you know, dust flying is an issue, and maybe there's the ability to require some sort of watering or misting or something to keep the dust down. As far as the noise, I don't even know what Mr. Saban can do. It's the individual truck driver and how they manage their equipment, frankly.
I think the only thing with a denial would just get their attention. It would delay them, and it would maybe, you know, if they're concerned about this revised 100-year floodplain map and we delay this now, it's just going to add a little more angst to them. But I agree, even if they say, yeah, it is noisy and that, the trucks are what the trucks are. They're heavy, they're noisy, they're dusty.
Well, and it's, you know, trucks bringing in soil, but it's also trucks bringing in landscape materials for the business operations. And that's what we're really talking about with the CUP is the business operation versus bringing in dirt.
Yeah, so with regard to that, a couple of things. We can look at the conditional use permit that was issued, and specifically, there's a condition that I would like to read. In the event the village receives complaints regarding noise negatively affecting the nearby residential neighborhood and adjacent properties, including but not limited to noise from truck-mounted backup alarms, the owner-operator shall work cooperatively with the village to mitigate the noise and resolve the issue. The owner-operator shall implement the measures and practices described in the application and supporting documents to mitigate noise, dust, and traffic impacts on the surrounding area on a continual basis. You know, we can bring Mr. Saban back to the table and start talking about, you know, a greater emphasis on employing and some of these mitigating measures that were discussed originally to try and address the concerns that are raised. It's unfortunate that, you know, we heard tonight that there's, you know, accidents that occur on Appleton Avenue. You know, this application goes out to the police department. We don't get any comments back that say, hey, there's an accident problem on Appleton Avenue. So I don't know. I'm not questioning the veracity of what we hear, but I don't see any verification from an official, you know, party like our police department that says, yes, there's an accident problem there. Same thing with noise complaints. We haven't received any complaints. And The police department doesn't report that they've received complaints either. And they know that this, and there's a handful of other permits or projects where it's sort of a standing request. If you get a complaint, let us know so we can put it in the file. So when this sort of thing comes up, we can deal with it then. Another condition that was adopted: if the use, activities, and or operations subject to this permit falls out of conformity with the conditions, or where there is a change in the nature, character, intensity, or extent of the permitted conditional uses and activities, which cause special problems or harmful effects associated with the permitted uses and activities that were not revealed or anticipated at the time the CUP was granted, or where conditions imposed by the CUP that were anticipated to mitigate or eliminate harmful effects with the uses and activities, but are found to be insufficient to do so, or for similar cause based upon consideration for the public comfort, safety, and welfare, this conditional use permit may be terminated or modified by the village board by the amendment to or addition of conditions after public hearing thereon. It's a legal, an attorney drafted that, as you could probably tell, and it appears in most, if not all, of our CUPs since about 2014. And it's essentially that if what we were originally told isn't coming true and things are worse, we can call back the property owner to talk about the permit and whether we're going to assign new conditions if it's deemed necessary and the concerns are valid, or we terminate the CUP. If you feel things have reached that level, you can make that recommendation to the village board and we proceed accordingly.
There,
You've changed, if it's more trucks or, you know, I mean, what is our metric to say that you violate the CUP now based upon what you told us way back
Well,
when?
again, and it gets even more convoluted because the CUP only applies to certain activities and uses, right? Unless you can tie the prolonged filling of the site, the tier 2 and the rest of the property east of the stormwater basin, to the operational needs or characteristics of the leased area for the landscaping operation, I don't think you can use the CUP to, you know, say you can't haul in any more fill. It's not a CUP use, lack of a better phrase.
That was where I started this. It's like, this is not the place to try to address the concerns that the neighbors have. This instrument is not that.
At the end of the day, it's not, but I think you're, you know, heading in the right direction. If you feel compelled to slow it down, to bring Mr. Sieben to the table, that's your prerogative. Or you make that recommendation to the board, you know, that they, before they take final action, they discuss this with Mr. Sieben.
Well, Jeff, Mr. Sieben is bringing this, or the landowner is bringing this to our attention, wanting us to approve his expansion of CUP. If we say to him, well, fine, but you need to address the problems all your neighbors have, are we on grounds to be able to do that? I mean, as a condition of even looking at a CUP request.
Yeah, I think we can. Commissioner Tarantino, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, it's hard because knowing what he's trying to accomplish, I can appreciate that, but when we've had similar instances like that, I mean, we had a kill date. That was in my experience set by the village engineer. Like, this permit's good for this amount of time. You must have road control, dust control, traffic control. We got street sweepers and water trucks and people directing traffic, but it was a quick 15, 30-day project, whatever that permit allowed. So, I mean, I don't know what's right or what's, again, like what you were going towards, Mr. Warren, like, what's the right vehicle to do that with? But it seems like those conditions could be added to the CUP, that it's just kept a little more tidy while it's being done and has an end date, so that the people don't feel like they're gonna be living with it for 8 more years, because ultimately it's gonna end when the maps get updated, right? Like, that's gonna be the hard stop period.
that is an issue, yes.
So And then the hours of operation that are on his CUP, what are those? What is his end time? Because then technically it can't happen past that, right?
Well, again, are you suggesting that the filling activity, the tiers and the property is bound by the hours of operation for the nursery? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah,
It's not.
it seems like it would be. And it's the same level of
He doesn't
equipment.
need a
truck.
conditional use permit to operate a nursery. He doesn't need a conditional use permit to fill his property.
Got it. So it's not,
So
there's
you know,
no regulation on the time. Not in the CUP.
Somebody was jumping in there.
Yeah. Bridget?
Does the noise ordinance not apply to this at all, since it's in the agricultural district? This seems to be outside of typical noise ordinance hours.
Well, the noise ordinance in this case would be police officer responding to a complaint and determining that there's a noise issue that violates the terms of the ordinance. And there is no decibel level that applies in this particular case. The only decibel level criteria that applies in our most stringent manufacturing districts. So a police officer would respond. The truck that's just banging and vibrating is probably gone by then.
Thanks. That answers that question. And then could you speak to condition number 10 in the original CUP? Did they come back with a public hearing a year after?
They did. In 2021, early 2021, we held the one-year review that was required. And I don't recall exactly what happened, but the operation was allowed to continue on.
There was no action as a result of that. I did double check that on Friday.
Mr. Williams, I think you had a question? No? Okay.
I would like to say, if I could, Mr. Chairman, to respond to some of the comments that we had earlier. The notice that went out. The notice reads, the purpose of the said hearing to hear all parties for the following application: conditional use permit application to allow grading and filling into portions of a 25-foot wetland and 75-foot navigable waterway setback pursuant to section 24 of the village zoning code. It may be worded in a way where people are misinterpreting that. We're not saying that they're encroaching into a wetland, nor are we saying that they're filling a wetland up to 25 feet. Again, it's simply grading and filling in an area that lies within 25 feet of a wetland boundary, but not into the wetland area itself. So again, there's no direct wetland filling impact that's proposed or allowed, if you will, pursuant to this ordinance, this public hearing notice.
Thank you. Further comments? Yeah.
Jeff, I guess I do have one question on the noise. You indicated that the trucking of the fill onto site is a right of his as an owner, as is raising trees and other items on his land to sell. But when I read through the two items that we indicated, we are issuing the CUP for retail sale of nursery products not raised in the property. Again, obviously that's not going to be an issue that's going to create noise, but how about number 2, operation of a landscape maintenance and construction service business is one of the two items that we issued a CUP for. And I would have to believe that that is one of the items contributing to the noise that these that these neighbors are talking about. So how do we identify that the noise is only coming from trucks that are dropping off fill and not from their landscape maintenance and construction service business that we did issue the CUP for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, short of, having somebody camp out there and make notes of what loads are coming in and the time, and then correlate that to any noise complaints that we get. Yes, you know, we did hear that some of the complaints that are more associated with the landscaping operation, the bringing in of the mulch.
Right.
And the snow plowing activity, yes, those are related to that operation. So under that assumption, you know, presumably then the village could bring Mr. Sieben in and demand that he address those concerns as part of the operational CUP.
Yeah, thank you. I really haven't opined tonight, but I'm going to right now. When I was running for office, I was in that group back there. And I went to the equestrian operation across from Rockfield Elementary to talk to the owner about the solar fields. And we all know what happened there. The solar fields are there, but no one from the village showed up there. I did. I'm going to go to this place tomorrow and take a look at it. Not one person in this room or online voted in favor of this. And I can't, in good conscience, vote to approve this without doing my research. And maybe I should have been there 2 days ago or when the packet hit, but I didn't. It appears that based on the conversation tonight, this needs a lot of rework. The neighbors are not happy. And I want to support the business. I do want to support the business. But I think there's things that the owner, I wish the owner was here tonight to address some of these concerns. And you did a great job, but we need to hear from the proverbial horse's mouth. I wish he was here, but I think we need to have the owner work with staff as well as the neighbors to find out what can we do to make this successful. Because right now I'm not going to vote in favor of this tonight. So that's my comments. Bridget.
If we were to vote to postpone this tonight, that would give us the most opportunity to have that dialogue with the property owner. Is that a true statement?
Yes, I believe so.
Because I do think that it's important for us to have more conversations directly with that property owner and have some dialogue, some action on how to improve the noise for these residents. So I did speak to you before the public hearing that technically this fits the standards, but hearing all of these noise complaints, I think we should really hear from the property owner.
Yeah. So we could either deny it as is based on the stipulations from staff, or we can modify those stipulations and add what we want added, but I have no idea what to add based on the lack of, I need more awareness on this at all. Or we can vote to table it and bring it back.
Please table.
So I'll entertain a motion.
I make a
I would be
motion to
favorable.
postpone this item for,
Phil, do you have a question?
Well, I think table is the word, isn't it?
Could you repeat that?
Postponing or tabling?
Tabling.
I
Right,
thought if
that's
we
what I-
table it, then it can't come back.
Postpone, table. We know what, you want to bring it back next month?
Yeah.
Or sometime in the future, whether it's next month or the month after, whenever the property owner can.
If you table it, if you want to make a date certain, that would be helpful. Otherwise, you might want to continue the public hearing and leave it open, or do we already close it?
We close it.
Okay. Do you want to have another public hearing?
I have no problem having another public hearing.
I think
I
that's
think
appropriate.
the business owner needs to partner with the neighbors and hopefully satisfy a lot of their needs. I'm going to go out to the site, take a look at it myself. I need some more fact finding on my end. So,
Okay.
so any recommendations in terms of the motion?
I guess if we're gonna hold another public hearing, maybe we could go back, reopen it, and then table to next month, a date certain, and that way we wouldn't have to republish and resend notices. And those that are here can pass that information along to others that they're familiar with. That's one approach. We've done that in the past.
Is next month too soon?
May 12th would be too soon. Yeah, we don't have a second meeting in May.
How about if we postpone until further notice until staff comes back with recommendations? And I don't think we need to have that in the motion, do we? A date?
You don't have to. Just act on tabling or postponing, whatever word you want to use.
Entertain a motion.
All right, I make a motion to postpone this item until the property owner can come and address the comments we heard in public hearing.
Right.
I second that.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We're now on to, thank you very much for coming tonight. We're now on to item D, discussion of a potential policy on the amount of multifamily housing development in the village of Germantown. And this is discussion only. Administrator Krecklow.
I just wanted to say one thing on this TLC, that I'm confused. Is this a farm or a landfill?
Point taken. Thank you.
Huh?
The public hearing is closed.
Well,
Thank you.
I'll say this too. The Indians used to live in that valley there.
Okay, thank you.
But if you let them go, you let them keep going, I'm going to be.
Thank you, sir. Administrator Krecklow.
Thank you. Have some information to share with the Plan Commission this evening. As I think that you're all aware, as during the course and after this last election, Village President Soderberg did call for a hold on any multifamily development in the village while we did some analysis and some additional planning on how much multifamily housing would be appropriate for the village going forward. So we have a first step in that analysis and process to present to the commission here this evening. These were numbers that were pulled together by the community development staff from the American Community Survey, which is completed every 5 years by the U.S. Census Bureau. So it's data that they pulled together that the Germantown staff pulled from the U.S. Census Bureau database. And this is a group of 17 communities. Some of these were pulled into the analysis based on conversations and discussion that had taken place at village board meetings and other meetings. Others were added by staff just because of their similar size or economic situation. And you can see the results here from that. Out of the 17 communities, Germantown was 14th in terms of the rank of percentage of multifamily housing within the community. We have approximately 25% multifamily housing within Germantown. The low for the 17 communities was Mequon and Muskego with 14 and 15% multifamily housing. The highs on the high end were Cudahy and Wauwatosa with 40 and 42%. And the median just from these 17 communities was 32%. And again, we were significantly below that at 25%. So the question becomes kind of, well, let me pause there and just see first if there are any questions about the data or any initial feedback.
Well, I want to thank you for doing this. This is one of the things that I encourage that we do so that we could take the emotions out of the argument. Do we need more rentals or less rentals? And I have no idea. We need to do a study first because I'm very data driven. So I think this is a good start to that. And I know when we chatted about this past week, the split is really 75-25 because we're putting the 2% of the mobile homes into the single family. I believe that's accurate.
Right.
So, and I have heard from some folks since this was put on the website that maybe we're, not my words, because I think this is great, that we're cherry picking some villages and cities to make it look better So I think we could get some input from folks to expand the list. But I think this is very good, especially after the discussion that we had on the Village Center and the proposed TID 10 and the dramatic pushback on the high-density apartments. I've been on record saying that I support phase 2 of that proposed Village Center project. And even if we would go to do that, it would appear based on where we're at, we couldn't do that if we kept it at 25%. So I would love to have further discussion on this. And this is just the first step, so.
And we can add other communities if there are others that folks think would be good comparables. We can add those to this list.
Great. Questions, commissioners?
I just had one comment. The percentages were interesting. I read the document, nice analysis, but I don't know that it's significant that we're at the low end of high density housing. If that's not what the community wants, I mean, we need to be aware of that. We can't sit here and develop a policy on increasing high density housing when we sit in front of a room full of people and nobody wants it at all. Now, I don't know, there may well be another side here that I don't see. I've been convinced a little bit over the years that maybe high density had a place, but I'm still, these kinds of numbers don't convince me of anything. So I guess, Bob, if I may, I guess the whole thing is, I guess I agree with you. We need more analysis. This doesn't tell us much of anything as far as whether or not we should do it. And maybe that's what you meant. That's what I wanted to say.
Well, no, this, and thank you for your comments. This is basically creating a baseline in terms of where we're at with our peer communities, the villages and the cities around us. That's all this is telling us.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
As long as we all understand that.
So one of the things that I think gets really confusing is some of the terminology relating to multifamily housing. So we're hearing terms like high density, and I think it's being used interchangeably with multifamily. And to me, there's a difference between a high density housing unit and a multifamily unit, that they could have differing sizes, differing densities. And I think we do already see that in the village of Germantown. Is there a way for us to see that level of information? What would be classified as a low, medium, or high density in addition to multifamily?
Again, it gets back to terminology. What do you want to call low density or medium or high? Part of the problem is the mixing of terms. A multi-unit structure can include condominiums where there's ownership. It can include apartments that are rental. So are we talking about multi-unit housing, or are we talking about rental housing? What exactly is it we're after? That part of the terminology question needs to be resolved. For example, I did some reading about this, and fairly recently, within the last year or so, the city of Oconomowoc, they adopted a policy, and they made a point up front of specifying we're dividing it into rentals and ownership in terms of the occupancy type, owner versus rental, and not multi-family structure, multi-unit structure versus detached structure. A slight modification, slight differentiation there, and we probably should do the same.
Again, this is the very first start of a long discussion in terms of do we want to remain? Do we want to go up? Do we want to go down? I think our numbers are very good. I was very pleased with where we've are in with the Falls. They're at 28%, and we heard a lot of comments during months ago about all the apartments, not only there, but in Tosa and Brown Deer. And you could see where Brown Deer falls in. They're rather high at 38%. But again, this is just creating a baseline so that we know where we're at with all the other villages and cities in the region. I do have a question. I don't know if you could go to the next slide. This one with the charts, if you have that.
No, I don't have that as a slide.
Okay. I know it was in the packet, and I'm focusing on the median age of 42.3 for Germantown. And there's a population, there's a graph there, population by age, broken down from 0 to 9 all the way up to 80 plus. The question from a demographic standpoint, I would love to do some more data mining on this chart to find out, since the last census, are we up or down in terms of the 20 to 29 age group, the 30 to 39 age group? Because we heard discussions prior to the election that we're losing our young people. And I just want to get some data to validate that or not.
Yeah, that's a great question and something that we can get some additional information. I've heard more recently about that at the county level with some of the county initiatives than what we've done here at the local level, but that's information that we can get and I think would add some value to the conversation.
Yeah, because we're at 42.3 and then Washington County is at the ages 43.5. And throughout the state, it's 40.1. I would like to do a little bit more research on that to find out, okay, are percentages increasing or decreasing since the last census? And that will add more information to have a discussion in terms of the split, 75-25. I mean, do we need more apartments? I don't know. Don't know. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What's your initial thought if we're trending older, that we need more or we need less?
Well, I would love to get that information so we could have a conversation on the why.
Okay.
And I don't know if we're
a demand issue.
Correct.
Question.
One thing I can just point out, and actually the Wisconsin Policy Forum just recently did some analysis on statewide on population trends, and Wisconsin as a whole is getting older, and that birth rates are declining. The number of people in the age range where they're more likely to have children is declining. So those are all trends that are going on. I think there are from that study and some others that I've seen that we can pull together information. I think most communities in the state are getting older. I know I'm doing my part to try to help with that trend.
Bridget?
It was like you guys knew where my question was going. That we obviously have existing multifamily units in our community. It would be helpful to know what their vacancy rate, what their average user, I guess is maybe the right term. How old are the people that are utilizing these types of housing types? Do they have a lot of turnover? Just getting us more information on what do we have now? And is it really competitive? Are people waiting for these houses, or is there a high turnover or a low turnover? Just more information.
Right. I mean, the whole question of demand is very important because this information reflects our history and what's currently out there. It doesn't get a handle on what the demand is going forward. And what we've heard through various sources, reputable or not, is that there's a higher demand for higher density, multifamily structures, rentals, whatever terminology you want to use. Housing is increasing in cost. It's getting more expensive, and there's a greater, relatively speaking, demand for structures that people can't afford. And that falls into the category of, in some cases, condominiums, some cases, apartments, ownership, rental. What are we trying to cater to, and what is the demand in our village for? Tracy Cross study says there's a demand for multi-unit structures, both condominium and rentals. And we need to decide, if we're going to place a cap on that, we need to know exactly what we're placing a cap on. Again, rentals or multifamily structures.
Yes, sir.
So I just had a few comments as I reviewed this information. The first one that I noticed is the correlation between median household income and the ownership of homes. I don't think it's by accident that if you start at the middle of the page and go down, where the higher levels of ownership are is where the higher average median household incomes are. And I note earlier somebody mentioned that, why do we need multifamily housing? Germantown isn't growing. My opinion is that that's the reason that that the growth rate is where it is because our housing is expensive. We don't have options for people to move out here. So how are we going to grow by having, again, we're one of the higher medium incomes on there, and we're one of the higher housing ownerships levels as well. I don't think it's by mistake that Mequon average medium household income is far higher than anybody else's there, yet they're the highest single family housing area on the chart. The other thing I note is that if you go down and run average household size on these, Germantown is high. A lot of them are in the 2 to low 2s, and we're at 2.43, meaning that there's more people living in households here. I don't know whether that means we need more housing or less housing. I do know that if we're trending to smaller family sizes, and we're currently one of the higher ones in the area, it would tend to lead me to believe in order for us to be decreasing our number of people in household units with our population growing, that would tell me we need more homes or more housing options. So that's just some of the items I was looking at when I went through this chart.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Again, this is the very first step of many steps. We still have a lot more homework to do. I could see this going to the board as a discussion only item. And then eventually, once we do more research and get the information, we can give an update to this group. And then with some recommendations in terms of, do we want to do a resolution? Do we want to increase or decrease the numbers? Then go into the full board. So.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I would like to bring up the fact that in our current 2050 plan, in the housing element, we have an objective to, as circled here, maintain a balanced housing mix and concentrate new multifamily development in walkable village center areas or other neighborhoods, districts, and corridors that provide connections to the regional transportation network. And we have a couple of action items in there as well. If we're going to move in the direction of adopting a specific policy that places a cap, if you will, for lack of a better phrase, on the maximum number of multi-unit structures in the village, it would likely be a good place to place that sort of policy statement in the 2050 plan, and more specifically in this particular section, where not only do we state what that cap is, but also put in an action step that requires some sort of regular review and recalibration of what the numbers are, so we know exactly where we're at from year to year.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I know based on comments that I've made in the previous board meeting that we do want to have an annual review of the 2050 plan, and if you want to place it here, what we're just talking about now, that's fine, and that's a board decision in terms of, do we want to have a threshold? I believe Franklin has one at what, 30? Is it 35% or 30%?
Connewauk is 35. I don't know about Franklin.
Okay.
That's another area we can do a little bit of research, is looking at communities that have these types of limitations and, learning a little bit more about how they set them, what they're set at, and provide that as well.
Yeah, and I really have no appetite to even start going down the path of, what does that mean in terms of if we even go up to, we're at 25% now, if we go up to 26%, 27%, how many more additional units is that? Because we heard loud and clear the pushback from the community in terms of high density apartments. And I certainly don't want to go down that path again. So, but again, this is a very first step of many steps in terms of fact finding, in terms of where do we fall in line with our peer communities, and then what do we do about it? So, any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to item E. Vincent Hallman, property owner, zoning permit application to install a 6-foot fence in a public drainage easement on property located at N106W 16331 Fieldstone Pass.
All right, thanks, Mr. President. As you mentioned, this proposal is a zoning permit review for placement of a 6-foot fence within a public drainage easement. Property is located here on screen off of Fieldstone Pass. It is single-family residential. A couple tidbits on the case. There is a 15-foot swath of storm drainage easement along the southern property line. Proposals to encroach into that easement 5 feet with a placement of a 6-foot white cedar fence. Applicant with Yuck Cut Fence is proposing the bottom or bottom fence portion installation to be 3 inches above grade within the easement to help with any stormwater flow. Site plan, plat of survey supplied by the applicant. A little bit hard to see on screen, but in the packet you can probably see it a little better. Property line, basically rectangular outline. Yellow swath area is the 15 feet of drainage easement running east to west on the southern portion of the property, and the line where the green line is the fence placement. So technically only a portion of the easement is it encroaching to and also located in. Couple site photos that the applicant provided, just kind of giving you a visual. Oddly enough, or maybe good, after a rain event, showing some of the drainage within that drainage easement. Red line is representing the property line. Blue line is representing the proposed fence placement 10 feet north of the property line. So staff comments on this, you're probably familiar with the fence code. It does allow placement of fences within publicly maintained drainage easements, provided consideration is given to location design and the materials and the stormwater flow. And in the case of a subdivision, that consent is provided by the HOA. However, as you see on this screen, there is not an active HOA in the Old Farm Annex number 2 subdivision. And along with that, as I mentioned earlier, the fence is proposed to be 3 feet or 3 inches above grade, allowing better stormwater flow. And then finally, with the conditions and in accordance with our superintendent of highways, we are recommending that an agreement, encroachment agreement be in place with the property owner in case any maintenance or removal of the fence is ever required, that the onus would fall on the property owner. So with that, recommendation is to approve the zoning permit application for the installation of the fence, subject to 4 conditions in the packet. And actually the applicant's homeowners here in the audience. I can take any questions.
Yeah, Bob.
Who came up with the 3 inches?
I believe applicant and Yuck Cut Fence. Originally, I don't think the applicant advised me that it was going to be 3 inches, but then they sent me a message saying that they are going to install it. If that's incorrect, Vincent, please come up and let me know.
Right, as contractor, distance to the outlet.
Did he do any hydraulic analysis? Well, how do you come up with 3 inches then? You know, what if the flow, if we do the analysis, you know, part of our requirements is that a PE should do an analysis of that. I mean, if it's 4 inches, it could be 4 inches that the flow gets up to.
Yeah, and traditionally we haven't required a study, or at least in my time doing a few of these in drainage easements. There is the code provision for that, which does allow for the Plan Commission to direct a professional drainage study if that is what the Plan Commission decides here.
We sort of leave it up to the Plan Commission to give that directive because it requires an expenditure of quite a bit of money.
Understood. But I mean, of all the places you're going to do this, you want to look at something that could be obstructing flow and creating problems upstream. What kind of flows how long have you lived there?
You want to come up?
Yeah, could you come up? It is crossing. Yeah, so how long have you lived there?
Do you mind pressing?
Yeah.
for us today.
Can you hear me now? Okay. We only lived at the property since February 14th. We did have a lot of rain since then and a lot of bad weather. I think that the picture that you see in there shows pretty much the worst state that we had in that time, with the water level still being several feet away from the proposed line that you see in the picture. By the way, the 3 inches was not a recommendation from the fence contractor because of the prevention of flow, but rather a general recommendation of fence placement. So being parallel to the drain line, there was no specific recommendation from the fence contractor to change the height because of that.
Go ahead. Bridget.
3 inches seems like not enough. Looking at the drainage map in this area, it looks like it takes at least 8 houses worth of drainage from the rear yards that would need to cross this area. And if there's a hard stop for that water, it is going to pond to the neighbors. Yeah, this seems like it's an overland flow drainage easement versus a piped drainage easement. So typically when we see these come before the Plan Commission, there's a pipe there, and there isn't an overland flow path. This, I mean, the water that we see in the pictures is telling us that water is going there. It is a low area, and we should not block that drainage.
Other questions, comments?
Is there any sort of difference between the fact the fence is running parallel with the water versus like bridging across the
Perpendicular to the
flow?
Well, for me, anecdotally, I would say it would be less of a severity if it's parallel, but I'm not an engineer, so.
That's her expertise.
I was pointing to the other engineer. So it's both. When it is perpendicular, it's blocking it. When it's parallel, it can go along the path, but eventually it is going to end up being blocking the flow of the water. So it's not going to have a natural path through. So in some cases, when you see fences like this, they do a chain link or something that's got an open bottom. And I believe you're proposing a wooden fence here, something that is closed. So there are drainage concerns here.
Yes. How many inches off the ground would make you happier?
I'd have to do the math.
Yes, show me the numbers.
Wait.
Wait. So I think perpendicular to the flow is more of a block, could be a blockage like a dam, especially if there's debris there and no maintenance. Whereas parallel, you're confining the width of that flow, which could also block it up because of that. So my biggest concern is that this is just a fence guy taking some arbitrary number and nobody's taken into account what kind of flows are really going through there. That's my biggest concern.
Yep.
And especially because it's wood and there's less open area. So there's a higher potential for blockage to occur.
Absolutely. The only thing that came in mind with the proposed 3-inch raised height to me was we're about, I think I proposed 4 feet away from the property line. I assume that at the border of the storm drainage easement, I assume that at that line, there is no height restriction to set the fence. So there would be no restriction to set the fence at the soil level. So the 4 feet that are moving away into the easement, lifting it by 3 inches, how much is the difference to leaving the fence at soil level 4 feet away? If you get my point about the blockage of the water.
I followed that. So part of the concerns is about your lot drainage as well as your neighbor's lot drainage. So no matter how far you move it into your property, you're still blocking your flow to get to that drainage easement. So you'd want to be looking at it from that perspective. Obviously, you're before us right now because you're in a drainage easement. So if you moved outside of it, you wouldn't need our permission. I would not recommend that because you're going to give yourself a drainage problem. So we are, at least when I'm looking at this, by blocking your drainage, you're going to give yourself a drainage problem. By moving into the drainage easement, you could potentially give your neighbors a problem. So having an engineer take a look at this and do some calculations of, well, where this is placed, is 3 inches enough? That's really going to be what answers that question of how much flow gets there. Is 3 inches enough for a storm event to get underneath there? Now, that engineer is going to look at rainfall from a few different perspectives because not all rainfall is the same. So we call those storm events. So they're going to look at a series of storm events. You know, if it's raining cats and dogs, now are you going to have a drainage problem? If it's just a regular storm event, are you going to have a drainage problem? So highly recommend taking that step.
Jeff, do we have, I mean, for us, before a developer comes in and does this grading, we've got don't we have a master grading plan that looks at all the drainage in the whole area to be able to say, okay, this is where we need a drainage easement and it needs to be this wide and at this slope because the village are calculating a certain flow amount.
Typically, yes. For a subdivision of this type, there would be a master grading plan. I don't know how old this subdivision is. But there would be a master grading plan that would be used to determine these sorts of easements.
Yeah, and somebody would have had to have done kind of a runoff calculation just to get a rough idea to see if this is.
If it's more than 20 years old, there's not going to be anything in the files that are going to.
U equals CIA? Yeah.
CIA or CYA?
That is the engineering calculation for calculating flow. So there are a lot of firms that could help you with this. A lot of local firms that could do this fairly easily if records don't exist with the community. As Trustee Warren was indicating, when a new subdivision comes forward, the village and part of the review includes calculations for how much flow is in an easement, how much flow is coming through your backyard. So in a lot of cases, that information already exists and you wouldn't have to hire someone to do it for you. This subdivision's a bit older and it likely isn't on file.
Yeah, I believe it's from mid-80s, late 80s, the subdivision.
Highly unlikely. It's worth doing a check to see if there is something, but you're probably not going to have anything on file.
No, other than just the plat. There's not going to be any analysis documentation.
So are we in another position where we want to table this until further research is done on the applicant's part?
We could, there's different ways. You could just deny it.
Well, if the owner is willing to seek an engineering's assistance and bring back information, then just table it, right? If you're going to give them that opportunity.
Or approve it with the condition that the owner gets a calculation from a professional engineer.
Then it's got to come back to this body.
Substantiate the 3 inches.
Or could it be approved by staff? I don't know if our village engineer has that capacity to check those calculations.
It's the burden on them.
It's up to you. I mean, you could saddle the reviewing engineer signing, stamping, whatever.
I'm open to it coming back to this body if the applicant wants it to.
All right.
What's your timing?
I'm open to any suggestion and any step forward on this, so I don't have a specific timing for this.
It may sound a little over detailed, but I mean, flooding water is
you don't want it in your basement.
We don't want, it's dangerous too. It's an attractive nuisance, for young kids, during big events and while your kids out there anyway. But anyway, I used to do it, but we got to be overly cautious on things like this. So
I'll entertain a motion to table.
I will move, we table it, but I was worried about do we define a time then, Jeff? What's best to do there?
Well, it would be, I believe it would be up to the property owner to let us know when he has that information available.
Okay, so I would make a motion that we table it until the property owner comes back with the information.
Perfect. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
do we have to give reasons why we table something? Do we have to give reasons why we're tabling something?
Not to my knowledge. No, I'm not the Roberts expert.
We're fine.
Okay, where is that guy?
I know.
Okay.
Further discussion? Seeing none,
Excuse
all those in
me.
favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, that motion carries. Item F, Bauer Sign and Lighting, agent for Khalid Ahmed, property owner W156N 9650 Pilgrim Road. Sign permit review for proposed canopy and monument signs for Citgo rebranding of the gasoline convenience and car wash facility located at W156 and 9650 Pilgrim Road.
The gasoline and convenience store car wash on Pilgrim Road is going through a rebranding, and so they're seeking permission, approval for additional or replacement signage. In this case, 2 monument signs are proposed. The cabinets for the new signs are slightly larger than the existing sign cabinets, but within code. There's a couple of items that we'll discuss in a minute that would need to be done to make it completely code compliant. And then there are 3 canopy mounted signs that are also proposed on the existing canopy on 3 elevations. Just simply flush mounted plastic Citgo signs for the name of the brand. This graphic shows both monument sign locations pointed out with the magic marker. On the left, monument number 1 is on Pilgrim Road. Number 2 is on County Line at the driveway entrances. It's important to point out that this particular site is subject to a conditional use permit that was granted most recently in 2004. There was actually earlier permits in 1994 and going back to 1973 that were initially granted to approve this operation. The current conditional use permit 07-2004 revised certain uses that were allowed, added the car wash, deleted outdoor storage, but also, and more specifically, included a condition prohibiting canopy mounted signage. And that condition still prevails today. So the proposed canopy signs staff is recommending to deny to be consistent with the conditional use permit, and also recommending approval of the 2 monument signs subject to conditions, as noted in the staff report.
Thank you. Commissioners.
Make a motion to approve the 2 monument signs as.
Hear me?
Pardon?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, this is
Tell
Lance.
us who you are.
Yeah, Lance McTrusty with Bauer Sign. So we are good with of the monument signs, and the 3 conditions we'll take care of. I just think it's kind of odd that they cannot have 3 really small signs on the canopy because of that CP or CUP. They're not illuminated and they're very small. And if I drive down the road north on Pilgrim 2 more miles, you got the BP there, and they have 3 on their canopy and they illuminate. I know that one's zone B5, and the one we're talking about is zone B1. So, I mean, if we can't get approval on the canopy signs, is there a way to change conditional use permit to allow it and illuminated? Because right now, if you're kind of at the corner and you're not close to either one of those monuments, you know it's a gas station, but you don't know what the brand is. You don't know if it's a Shell or if it's a Citgo or if it's a BP or Quick Trip or anything. So,
right,
I
there is
think
a process. You can seek an amendment to the conditional use permit that would modify or eliminate that restriction. That's a separate process that we can discuss beyond this process, but we can take action on the monument signs this evening, and you can work with the owner and let us know how you want to proceed as far as the canopy signs. But that would require amending the conditional use permit that would go beyond tonight's action.
and we would be good with that for right now.
Okay, thank you. We do have a motion.
Yeah, so the motion was to approve the 2 monument signs with the 3 conditions.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you. Discussion?
Does that include the denial of the three proposed
That's
camps?
separate, right?
Or is
You
it?
can handle it separately, yes.
Okay.
You could table it.
Further discussion on the original motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Now, do we need to make a motion on the deny the three proposed?
I would recommend you just table action on the canopy signs pending possible amendment to the CUP.
I will-
Table it.
Motion to table the three proposed canopy signs pending the amendment to the CUP.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries, and that's our last item. We are adjourned at 9:21.
Thank you.
We don't have any announcements,
I didn't have any announcements.
so. We are adjourned, 9:21. Thank you for coming and drive home safe.